Hey everybody, welcome to a special and somewhat unique episode of the Research Log, where Joey and I go on a little micro road trip to go and see Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete on the big screen because it was reissued into theaters to promote Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming out. I thought for a minute it might have been a 20th anniversary thing as well, but actually the movie's only 19 years old. It'll be 20 next year, if you can believe that. So because it was kind of a long trek anyway, and we would have been talking in the car, I just decided to pull out my phone, turn on a recording, and we recorded a little bit of discussion on the way in, and then talking some more on the way back. So the audio quality on this one isn't great, a lot of car noise in the background, but I'm sure you'll get over it. Anyway, enjoy.
Very good. Hello, folks.
So, Joey and I are currently stuck in traffic, about to be late for a theatrical screening of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete. There's no way we're going to catch the beginning of this movie now.
No, so you're just going to have to, like, as we're walking into the theater, you're just going to have to give it to me straight about what I've missed. But, you know, we are going to see the theatrical screening of Final Fantasy Advent Children.
Oh my god, it's
a movie
crazy.
That I was convinced I would never watch because I never had any interest in it at all.
I was convinced you were going to watch it someday, because someday I was going to tie you to a chair and make you watch it. I mean, ever since we played the original on the channel, I always thought, like, it would be funny to at some point do a discussion video on it, because, like, I do think it's a very funny movie.
Okay.
But it's not good. I
didn't think you even thought it was funny enough to be relevant to us watching it. That's why, in the back of my head, I was like, he doesn't have any interest in us watching it, and so I'm not gonna ever see this.
It's kind of not enough of it's funny. It's like parts of it are funny, but not enough to truly to thrill and wow in like a bad B movie way. Oh wow, a couple people looks like giving up and going the other direction.
Wow.
Not me. I know I have to get to my movie.
The tickets are already bought, damn it.
No, so Advent Children is very funny. A lot of it has to do with the context of like when it was released. I think that it still like looks fairly impressive on a technical level, and especially for 2004 or 5 when it was originally made, it's very impressive. Just like with Spirits Within, it was like a breakthrough for, wow, this is incredible, like realistic looking humans. Like I think it's really easy to forget because that movie's such a joke. But like Spirits Within,
what is Spirits Within? Remind me.
That was the first Final Fantasy. This guy's trying to get in front of me. That was the first Final Fantasy animated movie that they made a full like film studio for. That was a big old flop. But was it
supposed to be standalone, or was it?
It was standalone. It had nothing to do with the rest of the Final Fantasy franchise. It was similar to how, you know, the rest of Final Fantasy is usually a standalone anthology. It was in its own way a standalone anthology. The trouble was, it was a little too standalone to have anything in it that like a normal Final Fantasy fan would like. Like the most reference that there is a character is wearing pajamas at one point that has like a chocobo logo, where like, you know, like a polo shirt logo would be. There's no magic in it. It takes place on Earth. It takes place on a post-apocalyptic Earth, like our Earth.
Okay.
One of the main settings of the film is Neo, New York City.
Oh my god, it's just like Shut Up and Jam Gaiden.
Yeah, it's actually a lot like Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, Joey. And it's kind of a mess. It's got a lot of interesting stuff in it, and it was very technically ambitious. Had an all-star cast: Alec Baldwin, Donald Sutherland.
What the hell?
Ming-Na Wen voiced the main character. Steve Buscemi was in it.
What?
A number of other people. But it wasn't all that great of a movie. It was very technically impressive, and so some critics liked it just because it's like, holy crap, never seen anything that looks quite like this before.
Yes.
But it was kind of
see the graphics.
But it was kind of an unintelligible mess. But it was very impressive because it was like the year 2000 or 2001, I think. And it's like, you got to look at that movie and remember it's barely 5 years removed from like Sid Toy Story in terms of the quality of the human animation. There's a lot of mocap work done on it, I think. But then still a lot of, you know, hand-on animation work. It was just that it was kind of it was a mess in terms of what it was trying to do. Didn't have enough there to appeal to Final Fantasy fans, and it was a little bit too like slow and talky to attract in. Like it was a PG-13 animated movie, which we all know those don't do well in the States. But it didn't, despite its PG-13 rating, it wasn't like a big bombastic action movie. It was mostly scientists sitting around talking, trying to figure out how to solve some problems, with brief bursts of exploration and action to go grab MacGuffins they needed to do more science.
Awesome.
But anyway, I was just thinking about so then that was aiming for, I would say, photorealism was what it was targeting.
Yeah.
Advent Children is pretty stylized. And that may sound weird because like they look realistic, but everybody has a very like kind of like wispy, airy quality to them. I don't know how better to describe it than that. Where you'll see it when we watch it.
Yeah.
It's technically impressive, but it has much the same problem that they still haven't fixed by the time of Kingsglaive, which is when you've got really realistically animated characters. I'm not even Kingsglaive. This is a problem just in the cinematics for their games in general. When you're animating the characters very realistically, with like normal human proportions and normal human physics affecting them, then when they start doing Dragon Ball Z stuff, it looks weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. That's a big problem in this movie too. When they start flying around and doing crazy action, there's a lot of weird stuff where they're like flying through the air with seemingly infinite momentum.
They have the fly materia. It's fine.
Yeah, they have the fly materia, but they're still like Cloud will be like jumping away from something and he'll just be moving in like a straight line as if there's an engine attached to him, but he kind of feels like he's standing in the air, like he's no clipping.
Yeah. It's stuff that you can get away with fairly easily in like a 2D animated product, but it's just like when like you're saying, when it gets into the more realistic set of things, it's like they hadn't quite figured out how to make it look good yet.
It looks odd when they have
somebody has, but
it looks odd when they normally have so much fidelity to real world motor function.
The only thing I can think of that's gotten it right was Fahrenheit, by David Cage.
Yeah, exactly. God, it's so funny. I was thinking the other day about how nobody has ever called that game Beyond. They only call it Beyond Two Souls. No one's ever, because remember it's a colon, right?
Yeah.
It says Beyond Two Souls, and it's not.
You're not wrong. Damn, I never noticed.
So we're going to see Advent Children Complete. That's the screening that's happening right now. The original version from 2004 or 5 was like, I think, a little over 90 minutes. Complete was done for the Blu-ray release in like 2009, 2010. That was where the Final Fantasy 13 demo was included in the Japanese release of that.
Oh yeah, you talked about that.
Advent Children is the deadline for that team creating a combat system for their game, because they were told they had to ship a demo with the release of Advent Children Complete. Complete adds like, I think, around like 20 minutes of new footage, something like that. Some of it's really minor stuff, like an extra couple of shots in an action scene, or like an extra like 1 minute sequence in an action scene.
How long is the movie? Like typical movie length?
I don't know how long it is. You'd have to double check. I don't know how long it is right now. I want to say it's.
Pull up the Google.
But yeah, I don't know how long Complete is, because I want to say the original was like 90 minutes and they added 20 minutes to it with Complete, but I'm not confident in that assessment. I haven't watched this movie in probably 14 years, and I've never seen Complete. I've watched all the scenes from Complete because when it came out, I was like, go on YouTube, find all of the new scenes. But that was the extent of my engagement with it.
Advent Children running time, 1 hour and 41 minutes. What about Advent Children? You said Complete?
Complete, yes. It might be showing you the right runtime already.
Oh yeah, it's showing me that runtime. 26 minutes of additional footage.
So a lot of that footage is like little minor extra things to the like to action scenes later on in the movie. There we go. All right, we're on the road again. We're on the move.
Breaking free.
We're breaking free. Woohoo! We're still gonna be late for the movie, but that's fine.
The movie starts in 3 minutes.
Woohoo!
Let's hope there's a lot of previews.
Yay!
Let's hope that, like the Gurren Lagann thing.
Let's hope there's a special message from Tetsuya Nomura at the front where he talks for like 6 minutes. So the extra like 20 minutes are either like little additions to action, or they're adding a lot of context, because frankly a lot of the stuff in the original movie was not explained. You just kind of had to catch up and figure it out. So I think a lot of the new scenes are like explaining exactly what's going on in a little bit more close detail, and some people think that makes the movie worse because it's still nonsensical and stupid. So just get on with it. We don't really need you to explain it. Just hurry up. This movie's a weird little quaint product of its time in that, like, because it comes from an era when, like, okay, the FMVs of Final Fantasy games are starting to get really good, but Final Fantasy VII is still trapped in that 1997 polygonal game, right? A whole lot of this movie is structured, not even the whole lot, the entire movie is structured around, we want to show you cool Final Fantasy VII things. This is a very much things you know movie.
I can't wait.
So do you know anything about the plot? Because I know I've probably talked to you about it a couple of times over the years.
I just know it's post. It's
Okay.
post game. I know it's everybody's a sad boy, and I know vaguely the conclusion.
So I'll tell you this because it's like what it was in. Like it wasn't. It's not like it's a spoiler. It's in all the trailers. It's on the Sephiroth's on the poster.
Yeah, I know. What I think in my brain is Sephiroth is not real, but he is, and he's like in ghost particles or something. And Cloud's got to go into the mindscape to fight him. At the end.
All I'm gonna say is this, because this is like pretty obvious. The entire plot of the movie is just an onboarding ramp for Cloud and Sephiroth to fight.
Okay.
Like everything in the film is bending to that. And so it's just kind of ill-conceived in that way, I think.
He already beat him once.
Yeah, but Joey, he beat him in a 1997 polygonal video game. We didn't get to see them have a cool sword fight.
No, but we kind of did. It was cinematic.
It's true.
He had a cinematic attack, and then the Omni Slash happens.
It's
That's
actually
cool.
it's actually funny because I've so by the way, this whole video that you're listening to right now, we're gonna spoil.
Assuming, is
we're
it
spoiling
still
everything.
recording?
Yeah, it's still recording.
Okay.
This is we're gonna spoil everything about Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII Remake and about this and blah blah blah. But I've talked about before part of why I don't mind, like some people say that Final Fantasy VII Remake blew its load by letting you fight Sephiroth at the end, and I'm like, actually, this is gonna sound weird. You've never had a sword fight with Sephiroth as Cloud in a video game before. Because in the original game, Sephiroth is not actually around. He is a torso with no legs in amber in the polar ice caps. Every time you think you see him, you're not really seeing him. And when you fight him, he's just a weird freak at the center of the earth. And then you do see him as a swordsman at the very end, but you just use a special move and kill him.
Yes.
And every other time that you've fought him in a video game, it's been as Sora in Kingdom Hearts, as Zack in Crisis Core, or it was in Dissidia. So I kind of don't mind, like, if we're treating Remake as this is the end of Final Fantasy VII, end of Evangelion, no more after this, leave us alone. I don't mind that they put in that indulgent, like, big punch-up with Sephiroth at the ending of that game.
He'd be the final boss of every game.
It's possible, I would think, because the way that I guess we'll see what happens with Remake Part 2. We'll see what happens with Rebirth, but it's just...
You get to fight two Sephiroths.
It's very funny that, like, there's just this feeling of around the movie where it's very quaint now, because so much of it feels like it's, can you believe that Cloud looks that real? And you're like, well, I can go in less than a week, I'm going to be playing a video game running in real time where he looks better than this.
Yeah.
So it feels a little time locked in 2005 in that way in a lot of scenes. And it's very dour. You talked about everybody being kind of a sad boy. It's not just that a bunch of the characters are sad, it's that the movie is sad. Everything is gray and washed out. We're going to miss the first couple of minutes of this, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you now.
Go right ahead.
We're going to get there, and there's going to be a brief narrated recap from Marlene, where she talks about the plot of Final Fantasy VII and explains it, I'm going to be frank, not very well. Is this guy coming over? Nope, he's not. I'm going to go past him.
How long after the events of Final Fantasy VII?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years later. There is basically everybody has got AIDS now. There is it's a Sephiroth's mimetic legacy. When we killed him in the live stream at the ending of Final Fantasy VII, it seems like we didn't kill him, or maybe we didn't kill Jenova quite good enough, because there is still something corrupt in the life stream that is giving people fantasy AIDS, fantasy cancer. You get like black patches on your skin. I think one of the scenes that was added incomplete because they realized, oh, we never explained what the illness is. We see like somebody collapsed in an alley, like throwing up black ooze. Which I'm pretty sure that was added incomplete because they realized they forgot to explain like what was bad about the cancer that everyone has.
It just makes everybody sad.
Yeah. And so part of the problem with this movie, again, in terms of like its like legacy and why a lot of people don't like it, is because Cloud is sad in this. We've talked about before how Cloud is like characterized in a very like specific, delicate way in the original game, and that Remake got it right, and that no other entry between those two ever got it right. Because every single spin-off and Kingdom Hearts appearance of Cloud was based on how he is in this movie, basically. Now, if we're being real, Cloud is in a healthier headspace by the ending of Final Fantasy VII than he was at the beginning of Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
I don't necessarily have a problem with the idea that after the adrenaline wore off, maybe Cloud would have been a little bit sad about what happened to Zack and Aerith. And maybe feel a little bit bad about some of the stuff that he did, right?
Yes.
This doesn't necessarily screw with me. And especially if you then go, he went through all of that trouble, but now the world is kind of in bad shape, and people are getting fantasy AIDS, and he gets fantasy AIDS. He has fantasy AIDS at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
I can understand why he would be upset. So I'm not necessarily, strictly speaking, like freaked out that Cloud is like awful bad characterized in this movie. I think it's like a fine way to examine the character. It's just weird that then every other portrayal of him bent around how he is in the movie, including like when he's in Dissidia and stuff. Anyway, so we're gonna miss the first couple minutes of this. So at the beginning of the movie, we see a new city that is built on the edge of Midgar. So it's called Edge.
Sick.
Midgar is ruined because you may recall from the final FMV of FF7, like it's getting torn up by dozens of tornadoes.
Yeah.
And there's like bits of the meteor are like probably falling off and crushing it. So Midgar is like totaled. It's not usable anymore. The whole thing's gone. So a totally new city has been built. It's not a big megalopolis with multiple floors because the Shinra company's gone. It is just like a normal looking but very gray city. I'm just gonna have to talk about the first couple minutes of the movie now. We just see a bunch of establishing shots of people living here. Everybody wears gray, all the buildings are gray, and it's overcast all the time.
Amazing.
And it's very depressing. Tifa has a new bar. I think it might just be called Seventh Heaven again, I forget. But Tifa's running a new bar, and she's living there with Cloud and Marlene and a new character, a kid named Denzel. Barrett is not around right now because he is busy doing other stuff, and he's just left Marlene with the two of them. We eventually hear, we will hopefully arrive fast enough to hear this, but I don't know. Barrett calls Cloud on the phone to talk about, he's looking for alternative energy resources because of the whole, we're not using Mako reactors anymore thing. Yeah. And it's very funny with the heavy-handed environmentalist messaging of Final Fantasy VII. I don't say that is a bad thing, but heavy-handed, like direct messaging, I guess I should say. It's very funny that Barrett's first dialogue in the film is you hear him on the phone saying, "Oil, Cloud, I just found the biggest damn oil field you've ever seen."
Oh, that's wonderful.
Tifa's running the bar, and Cloud, because you remember that one time that Cloud rode a motorcycle?
Yeah.
Remember how Cloud was in that promotional image with a motorcycle and a cool sword with Japanese or rather Chinese characters on it?
Did he in the remake? Is the collector's edition of it? Isn't he
on the motorcycle?
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody knows that Cloud rides a motorcycle because he did it that one time.
Yeah.
So Cloud now has a delivery service, a freelance delivery service that he runs using his motorcycle. Which you'd think motorcycles aren't great at delivering things, but I guess he takes small packages and it has cargo space. It does have substantial cargo space for reasons that I'll talk about in a second. Because again, we're probably going to miss the first couple scenes of this. So Tifa's running the bar. Cloud is running a delivery service, and they've got some kind of family unit now because they're taking care of Marlene, and they've also seemingly adopted this other kid named Denzel, who was orphaned by, I believe, the Sector 7 plate collapse.
Okay.
He wasn't even orphaned by the meteor stuff. He was orphaned by the plate collapse. He just like happened to be out at that time. So they've taken him in. He's also got fantasy cancer. So he's in rough shape. Cloud has gotten fantasy cancer, and he hasn't told anybody about it. So Cloud basically, it's, for the most part, I wouldn't say this is necessarily a delicate depiction of depression in this film.
Yes.
But it does a couple of things that I think are really interesting, and one of them is the cinematic device of Cloud's cell phone. Bit of a rough crossing there.
Yeah.
Cloud has distanced himself from everybody. He's not talking to any of his friends. He hasn't let any of them know what's going on, and he doesn't seem to be coming home anymore. It seems like he's just living on the road. Like people, like the first scene is Tifa gets a call from Reno, who has something that he wants Cloud to deliver, and she calls Cloud and says, "Hey, Reno has a job for you. You need to go meet him at this place." Cloud doesn't answer his phone. He just checks his voicemail. He is totally cut himself off from everybody in terms of talking to them, but he can't quite get away from, like, he can't bring himself to throw the phone away. He's still listening to messages from everybody about him, who cares about him and is checking in on him, but he can't quite bring himself to answer the phone and talk back to them.
Interesting.
And I think that's actually, like, that's a really interesting cinematic depiction of depression.
Yes.
And they do a couple of fun things with that as a device to tell us where he's at, and also like for a couple of other story things. I think that's cool. So anyway, Cloud gets a call from he's hanging out like near Zach's, where Zach died. He has left the Buster Sword behind. It is just like stabbed into the ground where Zach died. And he gets a call from Tifa saying, "Hey, Reno call. You remember him?" Actually, I think it might be Rude. Doesn't matter. One of them calls. They're both at the same place. They're always together.
Yeah.
Called. He wants you to deliver something. Here's where you need to go. Cloud listens to the voicemail, puts the phone away. He hits the road on his fancy new motorcycle. However, on the way, he is accosted by three effeminate anime boys with long white hair. Actually, one of them is not super effeminate. He's actually kind of chunky and beefy, but he cries. He gets emotional very easily. The three of them are riding on motorcycles, and they spot Cloud, and they go and attack him. And Cloud fights them off
half a mile
in a big fight scene with his car. Thank you. He fights them off with his car, with his motorcycle.
Yes.
He has a big fight scene with his motorcycle. He's not using the Buster Sword anymore because he doesn't feel like that's not his. He knows the whole deal now, presumably. He doesn't say aloud that that's why he's not using it, but like that's why he's not using it.
Yep.
He is now using the Fusion Sword, which when it is all put together, it looks a lot like the Buster Sword, but it is actually 13 different small swords.
13.
And depending on like the job that he wants to do with them, I guess, because they have different utilities, he can like break them apart into different components of swords. He can split it into two swords to dual wield if he wants to, because we all know dual wielding is the coolest thing you can do.
It doubles your power.
And there's also come on, Jacob. When he's out on the road and he's attacked by these guys, he like hits up like the front like components of his motorcycle like open up and fan out, and all 13 of the swords are there individually to be like pluck out the ones that he wants to use while he's riding his motorcycle and fighting people.
This just sounds like a sequence from Guilty Gear, honestly.
It's a little Guilty Gear. We'll have to go and watch this on YouTube now, since we've missed all of this at this point.
Yes. Potentially.
Potentially.
I feel like the movie is probably actually just started.
We'll see what happens.
Turn in half a mile again.
So, he fights these guys off. He doesn't kill them, obviously, because obviously they're not gonna. These guys are important. He gets away from them. They summon like some monsters to fight him. Like they summon some. They summon some like some wolves.
Slow down.
Yeah, they summon some wolves out of like ash.
Okay.
It's very like everything in the film is very wispy. Like I said, they were proud of their volumetric smoke effects. whatchamacallit, hopefully we will get there in time for this, but just in case, because it'll be funny to get your reaction to this on mic. Cloud heads to where he's supposed to meet with Reno and Rude, and Rufus is there. Now you may recall, or you may not recall, Rufus sure looked like he died in Final Fantasy VII. He was at the top of the Shinra Tower in his office, and they shot a big cannon at weapon and killed it, but the weapon had already fired a bunch of rockets and they took out the top floors, and it sure as shit looked like he died.
Gotcha.
I actually really like the scene where it's revealed that he's alive. He gets like wheeled out in a wheelchair and he's gone blanky mode.
Very good.
And so he gets wheeled out in a wheelchair and with a blankie on because he's also got geostigma. It seems like everybody who's like you can put like a rag over geostigma and it absorbs some of the black ooze or something.
Geostigma is the name.
Geostigma is the name of the fantasy cancer. I realized I'd forgotten to say that.
Gotcha.
Just keep going here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going. Turn right.
Yeah. All right.
Stop sign.
But yeah, so geostigma is the name of fantasy cancer. But anyway, I like the scene where he gets wheeled in because Cloud doesn't say anything. He just looks at him, and Rufus is like, "Hey, Cloud. Hey, it's me. Remember me, Rufus? I'm still alive." And Cloud's like, "Oh my God, what do you want?" And he's like, "You're probably wondering why I'm still alive. Just tell me what you want. You see, I managed to get out right before the blast. I'm leaving." And he turns around and starts to walk out.
That's good. You just keep going.
Yeah, I actually really like that. Hope there's no way we're gonna arrive any later than that, probably. So, okay.
I'm feeling good about it. I think we're
hopefully.
I have a feeling,
We'll see.
We'll see.
I mean, I just for a special screening, I just don't think there's gonna be 20 minutes of ads. I think there's gonna be like 3 ads. By the way, this screening is almost full.
I'm certain it is.
I think I'm a little disappointed we're going to get there after the lights go down, though, because when we were talking about doing this, you were like, Joshua was like, "No, don't go do that. You two are stupid." And your comment was, "What kind of people are even going to be there?" And my response was, "That's why I want to go."
We'll get to see it once the
lights come up. Yeah.
We'll see the ghosts and ghouls around us.
I have some friends who are going. That person's driving my car. I have some friends who are going, and I like. One of them is, both of them are like FF7, but one of them is like an Advent Children cringe posting mark.
Yeah.
And the other one is not.
I feel like half the crowd is going to be that.
And so I was playing Final Fantasy XIV with these people like a week ago, and I mentioned that it was coming back to theaters, and then the one who's into it was like, "Oh man," and the other one went, "I wish you hadn't said that. I have been specifically not telling her." But anyway,
we have arrived at the theater, so
we gotta go. We gotta go.
We will be back in a little bit with a lot more Final Fantasy in our eyes and our hearts.
Okay, well let's okay. So now what we need now is the audio transition for we've watched the movie. So let's do a quick like auditory recap. Oh, I'm sad. I'm sad that motorcycle vroom vroom.
Brother.
I'm gonna punch in the church. Flip around. Whoa.
Piano that doesn't match with the action that's happening.
Denzel scenes.
What? He would not. Denzel would not shut the fuck up. Jesus. That stupid kid. He looks too much like Sora too. It kept bothering me. But anyway. What else?
More vroom vroom. Slurp the Sephiroth juice. I'm Vincent. My game is coming out next year. I'm very cool.
I'm still sad. I don't have my cell phone.
Where can I find a Radio Shack?
Then a team up happened.
Yeah.
Can't have a voice for Red 13 because he's got one line in the whole movie and it's stupid.
Yeah, I think, like I said, because in the credits, which is only like in the credits where it's showing the Japanese voices, it says special appearance for the voice of Red 13. So I assume it's in Japanese it's a celebrity, but I'm pretty sure in English it's just Liam O'Brien. Not just. I apologize, Mr. O'Brien, if you're listening to this. Not just Liam O'Brien. You're a national treasure to us all. To all of us gamers, we love you very much. And then flip around some more. It's good to see you. Twink. And then the movie ends. And then the movie just kind of stops. He beats him up, and then the movie's over because he beat Sephiroth. Yay!
Yay! Woo!
So I've had like maybe 17 years since I first saw this movie to organize my thoughts on it. So Joey, I'm gonna let you talk first before I leap in too much. What do you think of Advent Children?
Okay, let's see. The voice acting, bad. All right, well, okay. Voice acting is bad, but a lot of it was less acting and more directing because they were having to lip sync with the Japanese.
Yeah, there's some obvious priority. They've obviously prioritized the lip syncs over anything else, and it still doesn't look good.
What's the bozo bad guy's name? They kept saying it.
Kadaj.
So Tifa and Kadaj, I think, were the worst offenders in this because they kept having lines.
And also we'll talk about it later, but Dilly Dally Shilly Shally is a direct result of trying to maintain like the syllable flow of a Japanese onomatopoeia, but we'll loop back to that later.
I thought I was having a heart attack when that happened. I was like, I'm losing my mind. I'm hearing Simlish right now. It was even worse because she said that and I was bewildered. And then
she said it again. I saw you react to it.
I looked at you. You may not have even heard, but I said, what the did she just say? And you said, give it a second. And she did it again. And it's like, in my brain, I was like, is this like Let's Mosey from the game and I just don't remember it?
I don't know if I should. This is about to turn green, but I'm not going. Oh, he's turning.
He's turning.
Okay. Oh, it doesn't matter. We didn't get a green light anyway.
Nope.
Anyway.
Let's see. Child. Denzel. He didn't matter. He's stupid. He shouldn't have been in the movie. I don't like him. He makes too many anime boy noises constantly. What would you call it? His like flashback to when Cloud finds him.
Yeah.
He grunts audibly like 6 times. And it's just,
would you be stunned if I told you that scene was added in complete?
Oh my God! Who thought? Okay, well,
I'm gonna say a decent percentage of Denzel's scenes were new. He was not new to the movie, but like there was several things that I noticed anyway, we'll loop back to that. Continue talking about the movie.
I'm guessing earlier when you mentioned like what you were talking about with the new stuff that got added, I'm guessing they wanted to flesh him out, but why would you bother? Because he sucks.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that you were just kind of supposed to infer how he wound up there in the original cut, but it's been so long that I don't remember.
I mean, that's fine, but he didn't really add much to the movie other than just being another damsel in distress. But you already had Marlene. Yeah. So you didn't really need. I guess they didn't want to give her the ick.
I suppose they didn't want to give her the ick. Yeah.
Whatever. Who cares?
There was Joey. I'll talk about Denzel in a minute, but I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why he's in the movie, just really briefly.
Yes.
One, I think they wanted I think there's a reasonable there's a bunch of orphaned children around in the movie, and I think it's not a bad instinct that like after all that happened, like okay, maybe the movie there's a lot of orphans running around in the movie, and that's kind of a thematic thing going on. And like I kind of understand like that instinct, I suppose. Yes. And also I think it's a little bit shipping bait that Cloud and Tifa adopted a child.
Yeah, I mean you're right, but it's like I feel like for the same effect, like I don't know, I feel like maybe just say that they were helping out with like an orphanage or something. You get the same effect, and you don't have a little shitling running around.
You have primarily Marlene, and they're helping out with an orphanage.
He was there so that he could get mind controlled for a plot point that doesn't make any sense and didn't matter. By the bad guy. Is only you told me his name and I forgot already, and it doesn't matter. Did the other two have a name, or is
I think the only times they say their names aloud are in the first scene on the cliff, which we did make it in time for. We missed Marlene. We came in as Marlene was rapping, like we heard the last line of her recap of the events of Final Fantasy VII.
I normally hate children, like the voice acting of children in movies, because it's like either you get a child and they suck, or you get a
adult and you're just distracted the whole time.
But it's like I think everybody else is so much worse that Marlene never bothered me at all.
Yeah, Marlene's actually not really that offensive. There's like one or two specific line reads, but it's like
no worse than anything else in the movie.
Yeah, Marlene's actually not that offensive.
Yeah. Okay. What else is there? I mean, there's the whole. I get that they wanted to fight Sephiroth. They wanted to get all that mattered was Cloud fighting Sephiroth again. But boy, that was convoluted and stupid.
Yeah.
The mimetic memory of Genova.
As I was sitting there watching it this time,
God.
I came up with a much better plot to get Sephiroth back in the game, but I'll talk about that later.
Okay.
I shouldn't even say much better, just a slightly tweaked version of what we got. This discussion, as we said, we're spoiling everything. We're assuming you've seen this movie, even if you saw it 15 years ago on LimeWire or whatever. Well, no, 15 years ago would not be LimeWire anymore. That would be 20 years ago at this point. That movie's 20 years old this year. It was redistributed for, I believe, the 20th anniversary. I think that was what they said. Of course, it's also ahead of the release of Rebirth, but that movie's 20 years old. So let's talk positives. It looks pretty good.
It does look really good. Obviously, we mentioned somebody. Maybe we didn't mention. No, we mentioned before discussion. Some of the action not so great, but like the actual the regular animation, especially the models, everything looks just fine.
Yeah. I think there's actually, like I said, if it's just a scene of people walking around and talking, it actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of there's some overacting in some scenes, but especially there's also some scenes that have a remarkable amount of subtle little body movements and tics and mannerisms that you're supposed to just they don't say what's going on, and they leave you to kind of infer where the characters are at emotionally, which is nice.
It is. I will say, coming from the future of having played a remake, there was a little bit of it. The models are just different enough to where occasionally I kept getting hit with a feeling of Uncanny Valley.
Sure.
Where it was just Reno would turn his head, and I'm like, "That you look too gaunt right now." But no, that's a personal anecdote.
Yeah, you saw what I meant about how it's not. They're not really targeting photorealism with it either. It looks realistic. Your brain goes, "Oh, it looks really realistic animation," but there's a very distinct style to how everything's being presented. Actually.
Yes. I definitely see what you're talking about that movie being gray. Good Lord.
And then the one location they go to that isn't gray is black and white, literally. They go somewhere with really high contrast whites against black backgrounds.
Well, Jacob, don't forget the final fight is mostly done in the orange sun.
Well, no, okay, that's right. With the Kadaj and the motorcycle fight, you're correct. It does have an orange tint over it. Yeah. They decided we were allowed to have a little bit of color at the very ending of our movie.
Just a bit. And then
Sephiroth got rid of all the color. So what I really love about that is the gang all saying this is a fight that Cloud has to do. Whatever, anime, that's fine. Whatever. You'd think once the storm clouds appear and there's Sephiroth's mimetic juice coming down from the sky, you'd think at that point they would go, maybe we should help him out just in case.
There is I'm not a writer, but immediately in my head I have one better solution for that.
Yeah.
They kept summoning monsters.
Summon another one.
Summon a bunch of regular monsters and a big monster, and it's okay, Cloud, we'll handle these. You handle Sephiroth.
Yep.
It's fixed instantly.
Yep.
But anyway, that's not really a. By that point in the movie, you're not really bothered.
The characters saying Cloud needs to do this by himself is the least of our story worries here.
Yeah, and also it's them doing that, I kind of get it, and then flashback memory spirit Zack is you already beat him once. It's a full team.
Full team beat him.
Full team. In game, you're just controlling 4 people, but it's implied the entire crew is beating his ass.
Yeah.
But whatever, it doesn't matter.
Apparently, I found out something funny a little while ago, which is that supposedly when they were working on the original game, Kazushige Nojima, no, that's not it. I think that's his name. Nojima, I know is his last name. The screenwriter, the lead writer on Final Fantasy VII. Though there were many writers. Just when you go read interviews that have been done more recently talking about the development of the game, you're like, "Ooh, they dodged a lot of bullets on the way here." And apparently Nojima thought, I forget what part it was. I think it was when you parachute into Midgar, right before the final dungeon. It was you pick a team of 3 people, and Nojima was like, "What if everybody else's parachutes failed and only the party that you picked lived?"
Oh my god!
And Tetsuya Nomura was like, maybe we should. Let's not do that. I don't think that'd be a good idea.
That's no good.
I don't think that would be a good idea.
Now that would have made for a fun movie after the fact.
Yeah, how do you compensate for which characters are there? You got to canonize it.
Well, you just say they all lived, actually.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That was a pretty big deal when Meryl showed up in Metal Gear Solid 4, like 10 years later. Of like, now we know which ending of Metal Gear Solid 1 was canon. Yeah. Because I don't think she's even mentioned in MGS2, and obviously 3 takes place like decades before she was born. But anyway, yeah. So talking about the movie, talking about things that I like about it, I was saying to you when we were sitting there watching the credits, like, I actually think most of the scenes where Cloud is allowed to just talk for a second about what he's feeling and thinking are actually totally fun.
Yeah, inoffensive, pretty good.
I think there are even. I'm gonna tell you. I like Final Fantasy VII a lot. I'm a weepy little bitch sometimes, and I got a
Not
little
as much
bit.
as somebody in the theater. We'll get to that.
I got a tiny misty-eyed when Aerith says, "See, everything is all right," because that's like the whole movie is about, is Cloud feeling like he screwed up, and them being able to say it's okay, you didn't do anything, and which is also why you were talking about they blow their Aerith load too soon.
Way too soon. They keep sprinkling her in like randomly, but I like your idea where it's like, just don't have her at all. Have the cell phone scene happen. Have her theme play a little bit.
When you hear, like, if the first time you saw her in the whole movie was not seeing her, was just her voice saying, "I never blamed you, not once, you came for me, that's all that matters," and then you didn't see her again until the final shot when she says, "See, everything's all right."
Yeah.
Like, I think that would have been more effective. Maybe you keep her doing, since it's so stupid anyway, you can keep her during the alley-oop scene, because why not? Keep her hand helping him out. Because, like, at that point, you were already in, like, total fan service nonsense anyway, that all these characters are helping launch Cloud into the air.
That was so funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But that's also, like, I mean, I don't know, you're sitting there watching it for the first time. Did you feel, like, an insane adrenaline shot come into the movie, not just with, like, the energy, but your interest when, like, the whole crew shows up?
Yes.
Because it's, like...
100%.
Because
it's, like, everything up to that point was fairly unremarkable. And then it's like, well, at least these are the people that I care about.
Because I said going in that this is very much Things I Know ATST's movie, but it's like they're drip feeding it, and it's such an awkward selection of Things That I Know that by the time you get there, you're kind of just like, no, actually, I want to see the whole crew jump around and fight together.
Exactly.
I do want to see this.
That's what that movie needed. That's the damn bird crowing in Citizen Kane.
Yeah, to wake you up. The purpose of the cockatoos is to wake the audience up. That is the only purpose of the cockatoos. But the frickin' on one hand, it's weird because it's like they had so much restraint with that to not have any of them show up until that late in the movie, but that they blew the Aerith ghost load so fast. It's
like, as a treat, maybe you could have had a flashback to a moment from the game that Cloud feels guilty about.
Yes.
Involving her.
Instead of
not necessarily her death.
That would be better. Render like a single scene of like the date scene from FF7 or something, right? Or some other moment with her. But it's like you start at Zack's grave and he has to go back later to stand up the sword because he somehow knows that Kadash knocked over the sword.
Because he's an asshole and he just did it.
You could have stopped that bike anytime. They didn't even have to go to that cliff specifically.
This is a very minor complaint, but at the very end, like the very end of post-credit shit, it's like I'm very, I'm all for Cloud being confident and whatnot, but it's like I feel like Tifa should have been the one to deliver the line of it's like, is this
this is where a hero was born?
Yeah, instead of
it sounds a little like conceited that he said that about himself.
That's what I mean.
No, I get what you mean by that. I was thinking about that. I was like, that's, it's like, yeah, he's accepted.
I
he
used
feels
to be sad because my friend died here, but it's also where it's where my superhero origin story started.
I agree. I understand why they had him say it, but you're correct. It would have been better to have Tifa say it.
Yeah, or just if you're gonna keep his, keep the mood of it, just change the line, be a little bit different. Don't make it so conceited.
Yeah, it seems a little funny when he's saying that about himself.
It's like, it's like, is this where somebody died, or is this where if you want to be really flowery, you could have been like, is this where somebody's story ended? It's like, no, this is where my story began. That's
where every story ends, but every ending is simply a beginning.
Oh man, if this was Vincent's movie.
Well, you can buy Vincent's game next year,
Yeah, exactly.
Joey. Isn't he so cool?
He's so cool. Even though his gun never did anything to Bahamut.
Yeah, it didn't do anything. I don't believe for a second that a single one of those bullets affected that Bahamut at all.
No.
Isn't his 3-barreled gun so cool,
so
Joey?
cool.
The gun's called Cerberus because it's got 3 barrels.
Oh, that's good. I like it. Why didn't he transform into a monster man? Why didn't he do the monster mash?
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't. Actually, that would have been pretty funny if he transformed into a monster. If he'd transformed, if he'd slam dunked, he'd slam dunked Bahamut.
Oh man. All right. What else? What else is there to talk about in this fantastic movie?
So one thing I was really paying attention to going in, because I haven't seen the movie since probably 2010.
Yeah.
I watched it a lot back in the day when I was first getting into Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts, because I downloaded off of Google Video when that was still a thing. And I actually, I cut my teeth on editing, like so many people, with AMVs.
Oh!
Yeah. And I was using, like, well, it was, I honestly think, I'm going to be real with you, I actually think that AMVs are a decent way to learn editing, because cutting music videos teaches you a lot about timing.
Yeah.
And a lot about rhythm and how it, like, it's, if you don't know anything about how to cut, it guides you in its way.
I'm sure. It's just I'm not familiar with this Jacob lore.
Oh, well, this is because I did all this in like 2008, and then never again.
And then never again. What was the song?
A couple of different things, and I honestly don't remember. I cut a number of different ones because I was just like in love with editing at that point. Then I had that, and I had some Kingdom Hearts cutscenes on my hard drive, and that was all I really had to work with. So I kind of just used the same stuff over and over again.
Gotcha.
But anyway, going into it this time, having not seen it since probably 2010, 2011, thereabouts, and like watching a couple of the new scenes on YouTube when they released, and probably not touching it since then, I was really keyed into the editing, because I remembered a lot of stuff in it that was really awkward production-wise, and I was like, I need to, like, what was I feeling before that I didn't understand? So watching it this time, they're way too proud of their scene transitions. Every single scene transition is a really hard smash cut with like freaking out music beforehand. There are almost no scenes where it just ends on like a calm wide shot, and then we go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And like there's so much the editing on a scene by scene, like in the scene that you're currently watching basis, isn't too bad. But
except for a few moments.
Oh, certainly there were certainly like, individual moments.
Like a bad guy at the end going into the church. There's like a really weird cut.
Like jump cut on him like looking at the thing, and then a close up on the thing, then a close up on his face looking at it,
yeah,
and then a medium shot
immediately, because for a second I was like, did I have like a lost time?
Yeah, did I miss part of the movie? did something happen?
Did King Crimson do his shit on me just now?
No, I saw the same thing you did. But I was gonna say, like, so actually, we're talking about the first Aerith Ghost scene. Like, that was actually one of the only artful cuts, I think, like scene transitions in the whole thing, was not when he gets like sucked off of the bike and like his momentum cancels. I guess that's like a neat visual. But specifically when he looks over his shoulder, just because they cut the music like mid chord. And it was like, okay, that was actually kind of impactful. Like, it didn't feel like you didn't feel that cut coming. The scene just kind of stops.
Yeah.
And that was nice. And also another thing, I was like, I remember there being some weird camera work, and I need to figure out like what was going on with that, because it's been so long that I don't remember what the deal was. And I figured out what it was that they were doing, because there's a bunch of stuff in this that they're showing off their tech. Like, one thing that I didn't really process before that I got this time was, everybody's wearing capes so they can show off how good their claw physics simulations are.
Yeah.
Cloud's wearing a cape, Tifa's wearing a little cape, all of the remnants, they have little trails that can billow in the breeze a little bit. Rufus has gone blanky mode for most of the movie. So we got a little sidetracked, and I forgot to actually loop back around and say what I wanted to say about camera work, so I'm going to go ahead and record it now. There are a number of shots in the movie that incorporate an unusually fast camera movement, a really, really quick left to right or right to left truck. It has the speed that you would expect for like a whip that's masking a cut, but it's not. It's just a really fast camera movement as part of the existing shot. And I remembered these camera moves very distinctly from watching the movie a long time ago, but I didn't know why they stood out to me so much. So watching this time, I tried to key in and figure that out. The reason I brought it up in the same breath as talking about everybody wearing capes to show off the cloth simulations is the fact that what's odd about the camera moves is, and this isn't every camera move in the film, not at all. It's just a couple of shots feature this quick movement where there is virtually or possibly none at all, no acceleration or deceleration on the camera movement. It simply starts and it stops. And that is physically impossible to do with a real camera. Even if you were to throw the camera against a wall and somehow instantaneously, the second that it hit the wall, catch it so that it couldn't bounce back, it would still jostle, it would still vibrate, it would still try to go somewhere. So the human eye isn't really used to seeing a camera move like that. And I think they're doing it because they're showing off what's something you can do with a digital camera. And when I say, I don't mean a digital, you know what I mean? Not like a non-film camera, a camera that exists in a digital world that isn't even real. What's something you can do with it that you can't do with a physical camera? Well, you can move it incredibly fast and stop it incredibly fast. It doesn't have to obey the laws of physics. I don't necessarily begrudge this movie the experimentation. As silly as it may sound, Advent Children was making some legitimate attempts to push the medium. So I get why they might have wanted to try and do some stuff that would be unique to that format. I don't think the experiment necessarily paid off with these particular camera moves. They draw too much attention to themselves. And most of the time they're being done for something that, like, it doesn't feel like you're trying to draw attention to something. The first one you see in the movie is when Tifa is going up to Cloud's office to pick up his endlessly ringing phone. The camera moves really fast as she turns and looks into the room or something. It's not a deeply dramatic moment. It's not an action beat. It's not about following some action and then it very suddenly and harshly stops. There are a few moments in the film where it's used. This is used much more effectively. But I mean, really, you can make an argument that the more technically difficult thing to do is to accurately simulate the physics of camera movement to make it stop and start smoothly, which the movie does, constantly. It's doing it for most of its runtime. It's just that these instances where they intentionally forewent that kind of stand out. It reminds me of watching some of the all digital shots in the original Tron, where everything was just a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet and they didn't even know what they were looking at until they got the images all processed, a couple of weeks later. And if they messed up a little bit, and if some of the camera movement was herky-jerky, well, it's there's not really much we can do about that. Or watching, I don't know, amateur Gmod or SFM stuff. I guess my point is, like I said, I don't begrudge the experimentation, but it's something that I brought it up, like I said, in the same breath as the cloth stuff, because it stood out to me as an example of the movie making a stylistic choice, not necessarily for an artistic or story-driven reason, but exclusively through we have the technology, let's show off what can be done with it reason. But it's not as showy as something like we're gonna have all these wolves appear out of smoke, or every single character is gonna have a cape. Or I noted that in the original concept art for Reno and Rude and the other Turks, they have very baggy, ill-fitting suits. In Remake, they fixed that. Everybody's a much sharper dresser. But it was very funny watching this, and I was like, I wonder what do their clothes look like? Everybody's wearing a size too big, because look at that cloth. Look at how it moves around like that. That's crazy. Anyway, back to the discussion in the car. That can billow in the breeze a little bit. Rufus has gone blanky mode for most of the movie.
For no good reason either.
His geostigma has advanced, Joey.
Well, here's the thing. I kept, because of the way he was covered from head to damn toe, I kept expecting like I thought the scene was going to happen where like he was going to ask Cloud for help and yada yada, and then he was going to pull the cloth off, and you were going to see he was fucked up.
He was all covered
but
up
no,
black.
Towards
It was a style choice. It was a trick. He was
a
making
trick.
people underestimating him.
No.
He didn't need the wheelchair. It was all to make people underestimate. It was all part of his plan from when he threw the head off of the roof.
Why?
Why didn't he just cremate it?
Why did? Why indeed?
I think it's very.
Why did they kidnap the children and mind control them?
Because they needed them to lure Cloud in, because they needed Cloud for a reason that's never explained.
They did that because they kidnapped Marlene.
And they needed them as human shields while they were pulling down the monument, because that's where Jenova
they're all
was.
Stronger than every single person there. Punch Man could punch the ground and kill everybody.
You say that, but I was actually thinking about the fact that, like, power scaling wise, either they're actually not that tough, or Reno and Root are tougher than we give them credit for, because they actually hold their own in that fight for a while.
That's true. It's true.
And technically, they do get the kill until it turns out that the movie was playing a funny little trick on you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny when they show up to shoot Cloud at the end, and then it doesn't mean anything because he's fine.
Yeah,
like he could have just bled out from getting stabbed 30 times by Sephiroth if they really wanted Aerith and Zack's ghosts to say, nah, we're sending him back. There's no place for you here. Having them show up to shoot him and then they all explode is so excessive. I mean, I guess, what am I talking? I shouldn't be talking about restraint in this movie.
It worked though, emotionally, because somebody to our left was crying during that scene.
What, when Zack
after he got shot and they were like, "There's no place for you." Somebody was like, they were.
Like I said, I got a little misty-eyed when Aerith says, "See, everything is all right" at the end. So there's some moments in this that I think work.
This wasn't the end.
Yeah, yes, I know. Just when they say there's no, yes, that moment's pretty trash. Also, so like, okay, I'm gonna start talking about complete, like what's different and what isn't.
Okay.
I haven't seen the original movie in a long time, and so I don't know exactly what's new and what isn't. Thinking back to it, going into my mind palace and trying to remember what was new and what wasn't.
Yeah. 26 additional minutes of footage. 26 minutes of the stupid kid going.
So like a lot of that stuff for him was there. Like obviously him going and getting on the truck was in the original film, because otherwise how did he get there? I think the scene of him in the truck, like where they're driving across the countryside, I think that was new.
Minor thing, that bitch.
Yeah.
That bitch was like
the little girl.
Yeah, she was like, "I lost my brother. Hey, let's go get fixed." Like with a smile on her face. Like, is she a damn psychopath? What the hell?
I think the idea was, that she has seen death firsthand, so she's willing to roll the dice on these strangers who say they've got a cure.
No,
I think that was the point of that.
But in the context, like, I feel
she was smiling at him because he showed kindness to them, even though they had the stigma.
It
Joey
could not have been more than 2 hours.
Who knows? It could have been a day later. You have no idea.
I don't think it was.
You have no clue. You don't know.
I don't know. Anyway,
I'm trying to think of what, like, so like a number of things that they added were just like little extra things just to make stuff more legible. Like one of the most illegible moments in the entire movie, in the original cut, was when Song and Elena showed up to save the director. So you know how, like, in this version there was like that weird split screen effect of everybody like rushing to get here at this one moment, right?
Yeah.
And then like 2 more like slid in, and it was Elena and Song, and then they like ran around a corner and both shot grappling hooks to save him.
Yeah.
So in the original cut, it went straight from that split screen to the shots of them firing the grappling hooks with the camera zooming out from them. It's like you could only make out the vague image of there was a blonde person in a suit there and a person with black hair in a suit there firing grappling hooks.
Awesome.
And then I think even them meeting on the street afterwards was a new shot, because I don't remember that. I think maybe the shot of the rain falling on them and Rufus being healed and Elena and Song being there may have been in the original, but I'm not sure.
Also, the rain live stream curing stuff.
Yeah.
It was stupid.
Okay, so
the reason I say that is because it was working before Sephiroth was defeated. I figured. I figured
so,
for
Joey,
sure.
in my brain, I had deleted the scene in the church where he shoots at the ground and a bunch of water swells up and then it heals Cloud.
Yeah.
I thought when he killed Sephiroth and it dissipated, then it started raining.
Yeah, because that makes
sense.
It doesn't make sense.
It makes
but
thematic sense. It makes sense with
yes.
what they've been saying, that, oh, he's gone now, so now Aerith can get through and help everybody.
It makes no sense that she couldn't help before this, because the whole thing is Sephiroth's mimetic goo in the live stream is preventing this.
I think the idea is supposed to be that specifically at the church, because that was where Aerith went sometimes, she can get through there specifically. That's why Luz looks at the flowers and goes, ugh, disgusting, because he can feel the good power underneath.
No matter how much life juice is flowing through those flowers, with all the crap that happened at the church, they should all be dead.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they are now because they're flooded, but I guess they're flooded in life water or whatever.
Oh boy. So also, there's so much about when I was talking about this being time locked in 2005. Another thing that I want to point out, so this came out like the same time as Kingdom Hearts 2. Those were Sephiroth's nobodies.
Yeah.
They kept talking about, we need to be complete. Yeah. I feel like something's missing. I need to turn back into who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Nomura or somebody over there, maybe even Nojima was like they were on that. They were on that at that moment in time.
They were making the Square Enix cinematic universe, multiverse over here.
But yeah, no, it's I for a second I was like, is this a scene from Complete where they were fighting in the church? I was like, is this new? Because I don't remember this at all. My brain totally deleted it. But like, Cloud is cured in that scene.
Yeah.
So I assume it had to be in the original cut, because I don't think they would have changed the entire final fight for him to not have it. So I guess that must have been in the original. That was one part that like I must have been in the original and I had totally forgotten about.
It would have been so easy to just not have that scene, and as he's waking up in the water, see the little stuff like the live stream goo fade away.
Well, he doesn't even need that. It rains on him when he's on top of the building after he beats. I remembered it happening there. I remembered him being cured in that scene.
You remember, your mind fixed it.
Looping back to stuff that I like a little bit, talking about like some of the emotional stuff I actually think works pretty well. I forget the guy's name, something Burton, I believe, who used to be the voice of Cloud. I think that like I like the new guy, Cody Christian, a lot. And I think that the old voice for Cloud did a good job establishing the character, and he has some good performances. But like you can hear by the time he is in Dissidia NT, he is so disinterested and doesn't want to be there. Like it's just he clocked in and got a paycheck and left. But I actually think he does okay in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think that like. So if you subtract dilly dally shilly shally out of it, up until that moment, the scene where he's just talking with Aerith in that bedroom, it's not Aerith, sorry, Tifa in that bedroom, I actually think is pretty solid. Yeah. I think her being like, what, you're just gonna give up? Denzel's fighting, we can get through this together. I guess that only works for real families, huh? Like there's a lot of loaded stuff in there where you're like, what's happened between the two of them in the last 2 years, right?
What is going on up ahead?
I don't know. I see a lot of lights. Are we about to get stuck by another wreck? Oh, no. Those are emergency vehicles escorting. That's why they don't have sirens on. Oh. They're escorting at wide load. That's what that is.
Okay.
But it's pitch black out, and so they don't want people to run into it.
Yeah, crisis averted.
Crisis averted.
Crisis core.
Crisis core averted. Before crisis. Anyway, women are all about cottage core. I want a girl who's all about crisis core.
They exist. They're out there.
It's true. I think there were several of them in that theater.
I believe you're right.
Do you want to talk about any of the audience reaction while we were in there? I'll loop back around to talking about good scenes in a second, because there was a lot of laughter in the room.
There was a lot of laughter. Some of it was for the intended thing, where it's like, oh, look at Rude and what's his.
I was surprised by how many of their bits actually landed. Like, I don't know, maybe you felt differently. Like, obviously, a lot of their stuff kind of felt.
Some of them did.
Some of them fell flat, but I was like, actually, these guys are actually like, these are like legitimately good little bits that these guys have in this movie. Actually,
it sure would be a shame if they were horrible criminals who
exactly
on Sector 7.
But Quentin Flynn is just so likable as the character,
so
Joey.
Dude.
He's giving one of the better performances in the movie as well.
But no, there were. I was pleasantly surprised because, especially early on, some real dumb shit was being said and people were bursting out laughing.
Yeah,
I really appreciated that. I was a little afraid to.
We were in a church of people who were there to like who just unironically love the movie.
Yeah.
That was the other thing I noticed. Like, was there were I think more than almost any screening I've ever been to. There was so much. I mean, I guess we were a little guilty of this because we were 5 minutes late.
Yes.
But like, there were so many people going in and out throughout that screening. It was because everybody in there had seen the movie 5 times, or had been brought there by their girlfriend or boyfriend, or the guy who's been conducting a 10-year-long psychological experiment on them.
But yeah, no, I noticed that too because it's like we got in late and it's like, okay, whatever, and then like 5 or 10 minutes later another group arrived and somebody from behind us met them. Yeah, it's kind of a shame we didn't get to see more of the folks that were there, but hey,
that sounds a little cruel. Like, we were also there. We were also guilty of attending the movie.
I'm not making fun of these people.
Yeah, sure.
No, it's like it's always interesting when
to
you
see
these,
who. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like I always talk. I guess I am making fun of them. So, but I'll talk.
But again, we were there, so we're part of the problem.
It's true, but no, I talk about when I went to the Dragon Ball screening and all the kids that were in front of me and the conversations they were having. But it's like that's part of the entertainment. I'm not. Listen, it's not wrong to people watch. If you're people watching so you can feel better about yourself by judging them, that's one thing. But it's just fun to observe other folks.
Yes, as a just to study the human animal.
Yes.
And I mean, technically I went in a kind of cosplay. I went dressed as as an Advent Children NPC because I'm wearing jeans and my grayest hoodie. I could be any one of those extras walking around the city of Edge.
Exactly. Did they ever name drop the city?
They do in the first scene that we missed because you see like some street signs like in the establishing shots of the city. They also established the big monument to Meteor in that opening like montage of the city, but we just missed it.
Gotcha.
But anyway, yeah, other stuff that was added in Advent Children Complete. I'm just like trying to remember. I remember watching it as like I said, there were a couple things that just like increased the legibility a lot. Like the grappling hook thing is one of the ones that stands out to me the most. The extra footage of Elena's like body cam was all new.
That's another, and you get this a lot with just with anime and games, but it's like. There was a whole lot of like, why didn't they just kill this person?
Yeah.
And it's like, why didn't they kill them?
Yeah, why didn't they kill Elena and Sung? There's no reason to keep them alive.
Like, the first time they went to visit Mr. President, it's like they knocked out everybody in the room and they could have just killed him. And it's like, I guess, he's got information that they need, but why did they not kill Reno and Rude?
I've got a vague memory, and I could be wrong about this. I think the scene of Reno and Rude talking about, boy, it's been 2 years, we got a lot to atone for, and then the miasma comes through the door. I think that may have been new. I remember there being a really awkward cut to Reno and Rude already on the ground, but that was still in this version of the movie as well, because like we cut away to something else.
Exactly.
I think we cut away to a Denzel scene. So I may be wrong about that. But that was
like right when we got to that scene, I was like, all 3 of these guys are dead.
Yeah.
But no, they just
let him go. They
just let him go.
They need him to inform where. I guess technically, did he kidnap? I guess he kidnapped Rufus in that scene. That's why he was with him in that building. He didn't because I don't know. Who cares?
It's that stupid anime thing of just it's like you're not worth my time, whelp.
Yeah.
It's like just kill him.
Just kill him.
Just kill him.
It'll be worth your time later, maybe. That was Sephiroth's mistake. He didn't kill Cloud.
Yeah. But
you'd think the remnants would know not to do that, since that was Sephiroth's whole big screw up. Or maybe they just wanted Cloud like rivalries with and they thought maybe the Turks could be that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the very first encounter, don't they win? And
against
then
Cloud.
they disappear.
Yeah, they're kind of beating up Cloud, and then
Yeah.
they take off.
They had to clear upper hand, and he was losing.
Yeah, because there was no point. There was no point to that scene, Joey.
Yeah, okay.
Because they couldn't win yet because the movie had to still happen. So this, okay, there's so much to talk about. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about what I think while I was watching it, I came up with a better plot.
All right.
Because I was like, as soon as the gang showed up to fight Bahamut, I was like, okay, on one hand, I kind of appreciate the restraint of not doing this earlier, but on the other hand, imagine if this had been like the opening scene, and this was the tone setter.
Yeah.
Even if they weren't in the whole thing, if they popped up a little bit more throughout it, and obviously that wouldn't work for the Cloud's depression arc stuff. But just thinking about that, I was like, what would they have been fighting at the beginning of the movie though? Like, what would you, like, how do you just cold open into fighting them? Because I was just thinking about like, this movie's like so hell-bent on bringing Sephiroth back, and the Remnant stuff isn't working, but some of the Cloud emotional stuff is working. Is there another movie where we keep the character stuff, but the plot's totally different? And so in my head, I workshopped something really fast, which was, okay, what if Sephiroth's mimetic legacy in the life stream didn't cause two twinks and a twunk to show up? What if it infected a couple of the weapons that were still around, and they started rampaging?
Sure.
And the gang had to get back together to stop it. Like, Cloud tried to went and dealt with like a smaller one, like totally on his own, and almost died. And like, the gang shows up after he's already left, and they're all calling him like, "You idiot, why won't you let us help you?" Or, or something, I don't know, something like that. You could still have it lead up to, once they're defeated, Sephiroth, the miasma comes out and Sephiroth appears.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, like, you could, because like the least interesting scenes in the movie are when the remnants are talking, or when Rufus is talking about what the remnants are. Like, it was that was one of the only times that you like actually leaned over to me and had to whisper about how bad the dialogue was in Rufus's like initial scene, where he's trying to explain what the plot of the movie is.
It's horrible.
What if it was just there are a bunch of kaiju around, and Cloud's trying to get it together in the midst of this crisis, and we drop all of the where's Genova's head, drop all the remnant stuff. You can keep the kids around. The
Sure.
Bahamut smashes up an orphanage. You can even keep Geostigma. Why not, right?
Sure.
But I feel like you drop all scenes where the remnants are talking, and that frees up a lot of time for Cloud to speak. Because every time he opens his mouth, it's really not that bad. Shockingly, it's almost like the writers knew what they wanted to do with him, and then the rest of the movie was like a crapshoot. But anyway, so the dilly-dally shilly-shally thing. I looked that up before we came to see this, because I was like, okay, so what was the deal with that? But yeah, so I was saying, like, that scene feels okay. Like, it's with like Tifa's, like, it's the only scene where Tifa gets any real like solid service as a character and like something to do, and it feels in character for her to be trying to get him to stop moping. To try and fix his psyche, because she's done it before. And I really like when she gets like despondent and says, "I guess that only works for real families," because I don't know, that fills in like such an interesting like question mark about what's been going on in the last 2 years. Like, what is they were living together and they're not anymore. Like, were they almost? Did they maybe? Did they get close?
Find out on fanfiction.net.
And then this happened.
That doesn't exist anymore. It did when this movie came
Archive
out.
of our own, Joey.
Yeah.
Archive of our own. AO3. But no, like I actually like that. I like that question of like how close did they get, and then he bailed.
Yeah.
But then she says dilly dally shilly shally. So
she ruins it.
So in Japanese, she uses the onomatopoeia for the sound of something dragging along the ground, which is something like, it's like sura 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 sura. And as I understand it, when it's used in repetition like that, it's supposed to be like, man, you're really dragging your feet. Like, you're accusing someone of moving slowly or dragging their feet or being a drag or whatever.
And they were so hell bent on lip syncing.
Yes.
They're like.
When I looked this up, because you say your thing first.
I was gonna say, it's like you can't have both.
Yeah.
You can't have good line reads and lip sync when when you're
It's simply not
translating
possible.
from a different language that's so vastly different from one another. It's like I would have vastly preferred them just do the lines, damn the lip sync.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice when you can do both, but it's like it's so jarring hearing people talk so unnaturally.
Yeah.
Hearing people talk so
Naturally. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There was a so like the little article that I found explaining all of that suggested was just could have translated as she kind of ducks her head and shakes it anyway.
Yeah.
It's really that she repeats it that kills it. She repeats it looking dead at the camera, so you couldn't have done the repetition. You couldn't have gotten the alliteration, I guess. That's the thing. They prioritize the alliteration and the syllable count over the thing I read was she should just man, it's like pulling teeth with you or something like that.
Yeah.
And you could have gotten away with that when she ducked her head, but then she repeats it, and then later on in the movie, doesn't she say it again? No, Aerith says it in a vision.
Yeah.
It's we have to have that repetition. It's a little messy.
It is.
But I was talking to you about the device of the phone going into it. I forgot that Tifa literally says you may never answer it, but you don't throw it away either. And I don't mind. It's not. I don't think that's too unsubtle or whatever for the movie. I think it's cool. Especially because I feel again, if we cut the remnants out of this, there could have been more scenes of Cloud not answering the phone.
Yeah.
But I think the scene where the phone falls into the water. You said something really funny. You leaned over to me during it, and you said, I really thought for a second there that the phone was going to land in a skeleton hand. Because why did the remnants go to the Forgotten City? Well, because that's where Aerith died. I know where that is. I know where that is. Except that suddenly the pond is a lot shallower because he can just walk out into it, and so can all the kids.
But then the phone falls in it anyway.
But maybe it fell into a different pond? Unclear.
It's like in Dark Souls 2, there's an area where there are holes in the water's shallow, but there are holes everywhere, and you basically just have to use a torch because otherwise you can't see and you're just going to fall to your
Did you
death.
see the Miyazaki quote from earlier today?
No.
Somebody was talking to Miyazaki about will there be a poison swamp in the shadow of the Eld Tree, and I forget exactly what he said, but it was something I was thinking about it. I really had to search my soul about it, and I realized, maybe there would be something missing if there wasn't a poison swamp. I've seen people talking about it, and I was thinking about not including it because I've seen people.
People made it real.
Yeah, but he's but I really feel like there is something to it. I have some kind of connection. Perhaps I have to put one in the game.
No, I didn't see that. I didn't read the article, but I did see the bullet point, and it was 10 plus new bosses, 8 new weapon types, something, poison swamp. I was like, what? Why is that on the bullet points? Also, I find it really, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I find it really funny that they're 10 plus bosses. It's bro, there's gonna be there's gonna be way more than 10 bosses. There's no way.
I'm below the speed limit. I'm fine. I saw a cop and I panicked for a second, but I'm I'm actually below the speed limit right now.
Yeah. Be like that.
But anyway, no. So I actually in terms of effective scenes in the movie, I think so again, I was surprised by how effective some of the Reno and Rude stuff was.
Yeah.
I was there's actually a lot of decent jokes there. A lot of good physical comedy, some funny bits. And again, in terms of physical acting and subtle little things, the moment where after they fall out of the helicopter and they're both just catching their breath and Reno realizes he's still holding the control stick, it's they just kind of look at each other and chuckle a bit. That felt bizarrely human.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a number of scenes that I like in it, but one of the scenes I like the most is the phone sinking down in there when you hear everybody still really cares about him and is checking in on him constantly, and none of them say anything that important. Reeve is the first one we hear, and it's such a mundane call of just I saw one of your flyers. How the hell do you stay in business? Well, anyway, if you ever need any help with anything, just let me know. They didn't need to concoct everybody's calling him about something super emotional to tell him how special he is to them or whatever. It's just that everybody is thinking about him and really cares about him.
It really should have been one from Barry's Cloud, I got this new shirt. I really want to hear your opinion on it.
I got a fishnet I'm going to start wearing now, Cloud.
I think I'm going to go open jacket with fishnet. What do you think?
And it's I think that's one disappointment is that when you're hearing all those voicemails, they recycle his call about the biggest damn oil field you've ever seen instead of letting us hear something different.
Yeah.
But like just, I think that is really effective, and then having it end with "I never blamed you, not once, you came for me," that's all that matters. I didn't get as affected by it in the theater this time around because I was kind of like too busy, like we just finished like laughing about Vincent being an old man, and you leaned over to me to say I thought I was going to land in a skeleton hand. But I was talking to Joshua about like effective stuff from that movie, and I described that scene to him, and both of us were like, God, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
like on its own, isolated in a story about Cloud being sad and feeling cut off from his friends, like that's like wildly effective. It deserved that scene deserved a better movie. And like I said, like if that had been I think maybe they were like they wanted you to know what Aerith sounded like before that scene, so they needed the ghost. But yeah, like anybody who's in the theater will be able to figure it out.
I'm gonna say nobody in their right mind is gonna hear that voice go, huh?
Who was that? Was that Tifa?
Because even for a second I was like, well, they had to recap, so maybe this is for the people that don't know. But the people that don't know still don't know.
Yeah, the people that don't know still don't know. Like, get out of here.
It's like you see one frame of Sephiroth about to stab her.
Yeah, no, there were a number of things that were added and complete that seemed like additional concessions to people who don't know. Like, again, I don't know about the scene with Reno and Rude talking about, boy, we sure did a lot of bad stuff, huh? I don't know if that was in the original or not. But like...
while I appreciate that, I think he should have gone a little bit harder on that, because it's not just, man, we kind of screwed up.
Denzel is an orphan because of them.
Yes. And a ton of people are.
Yeah.
Even before all the meteor shit, they dropped the play.
Yeah. They were just following orders, Joey.
Yeah, of course.
But also Rufus is a good guy now because he kind of helped out at the end.
Yeah, of course.
Because Rufus didn't give that order, it was his dad, and Sephiroth killed him. And Heidegger and Scarlet are dead. They were in the Proud Claude, and then it blew up, and they Team Rocket blasted off again. God.
I'm just saying, this is minor, and maybe it wouldn't have worked given the script, but it's like, I feel like Reno was still a little too jokey when he was talking about this. Like, I feel like the facade should have dropped completely.
When he was alone with Rude?
I feel like the facade should have completely dropped and had a more, like, sincere, like, well, what, like, man, how are we ever gonna, is it even possible for us to fix this?
Yeah.
Because he kind of did that, but he kept doing it in the same Reno Axel inflection.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Should have taken it a little more seriously, and I would have taken that scene more seriously.
I'm trying to think of like other stuff. I remember like a couple of other things where I was like, oh, that was a new shot for Complete, and that actually added a lot of like legibility to this, but I don't remember all of them now because it's kind of a long movie. So like all of the stuff of like the flashback to Denzel at the church, that was all new. That scene that feels like it goes on for 3 hours where there's no dialogue. It's like everything about that scene is like effective on paper, but everything goes on a little bit too long. Like we need to hear the failed dial tone like 3 times, but we hear it I think maybe 17 times.
We hear it a ton, and for some, like every time it has an S syllable, it like crackles with the speakers,
and it's mixed so loud.
I know.
It was mixed louder than any other dialogue in the movie.
It's the only point where I almost contemplated covering my ears every time the S was coming because it was so loud. There's just so much weird editing, and I think like it wasn't helped by the insertion of the new scenes because they had to maintain their stylistic like insane finish like hard cuts, but now they had to do stylistic insane finish hard cuts to new scenes that were not the original cuts, which I think made some of the cuts even more awkward. And it's like adding all that extra stuff to explain things to the beginning just like really pads out the runtime before the team shows up, which is like, unfortunately, that's what we're here for at this point because this other stuff isn't working. Yeah.
I really don't hate the idea of Denzel as a victim of this thing who's around,
no.
and he's got the juice in him.
Handled better, it makes more sense, but he just
is not. Yeah,
he does not serve any real purpose in the film as it's presented.
Another thing that was added was him hitting that wolf with the fire hydrant. That was added for Complete.
Yeah, it's like, why?
Originally, he just took off. Also,
Did somebody complain that he was useless, and they were like, we got to make him not useless?
He does Cloud's like spin the sword around his head move. He He learned from Cloud.
Wow.
And
so
I'm
cool.
also 95% sure that while Denzel and Marlene like in the window saying Cloud will come back, he said he would, and maybe even them answering the phone was in the original cut. I'm not sure about them answering the phone. I know them in the window was in the original cut. Them running through the streets and everybody going
That
to the
was so
church,
stupid.
that was all added. That was all added. I guess they felt like they had to explain how everybody got to the church, but it actually makes it more confusing.
It doesn't make any sense.
You hear all those phones ringing. Is Aerith calling everyone?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
No, it didn't make a lick of sense.
it's better when it fades to white and it fades up and everybody's there, and like you
it's like-
don't know how they got there.
And it's like,
How much time passed?
How much time passed, and even when it's just like the random people around town, it's like, whatever, it's a church historically used for sanctuary during hard times.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wouldn't have questioned why there was a bunch of randos in there.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, that was a scene I don't think I even knew about. That was really funny when everybody in the town is all like receiving phone calls from. Like, I assumed it was like Tifa calling them and being like, "Hey, get down to the church." But then everybody's being called, so I was like, okay, did Tifa call CNN to have CNN to put out a mass phone call to let people know go to the church to get your geostigma cured, or did Aerith call everybody? Because one
Did
of the
Tifa ever actually see the geostigma getting cured from anybody from the water? Ever?
I mean, once they were in the church, she knew that.
Well, yes,
But she saw the raindrop inside of the airship, and she
she was
knew
like,
that it was Aerith.
But did she just know that she could?
Yes, she knew. She knew that Aerith
She
was
just-
there to help now.
She just knew.
Joey, it's honestly exactly the same plot as last time, which is that after we beat Sephiroth, then Aerith's spell was no longer be contained. She just knew it worked last time, it'll work this time.
It just works.
It's a good movie, right?
I mean, I enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
I didn't have a bad time. I don't regret coming and seeing this in theaters.
I mean, when the hell is this ever going to be in a theater again in the rest of
exactly.
our lives?
Never. Well,
Maybe for the 40th anniversary.
Maybe for the 40th anniversary. Maybe when the Final Fantasy remake happens when we're old and gray.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it'll get a special VR remake of this movie for people.
a special metaverse remake. A special what's it called in Cyberpunk? The like Cyber Dive, Cyber
God.
Dream. What's it called?
I don't remember the name. I know what you're talking
Night
about.
Dive, Cyber
Oh.
Dance, Mind Dance.
I think it was
Damn, I
something-
can't
I think it was
remember it.
something dive, like Mind Dive or something like that.
Can't remember it. One of those though. We'll get those eventually. When you and I are old and we're you and I talked about like the people our age, like 90 years old, sitting in the retirement home, not able to complete a sentence anymore, start laughing hysterically because they see the Among Us shape. They see a trash can that looks like Among Us.
No, I'm thinking of a clip from The Lighthouse where it just says the retirement home at 98, and it's just Willem Dafoe going Fortnite, and then it cuts to Robert Pattinson, and it cuts back to him, and he's just laughing. Remember when they added Peter Griffin to Fortnite?
Remember when they added Peter Griffin to Fortnite? That was pretty funny.
Remember when they added Solid Snake? Or no,
And they took
I'm
his
not
ass.
gonna say Solid Snake, but Old Snake has ass,
They took Solid Snake's ass and they took Raiden's thighs.
and they put all that meat on old Snake.
Oh boy.
It's good stuff.
There was other stuff I thought about, while we were in there, but it was a long movie and I wasn't taking notes during it, so.
Yep.
But no, I think that movie. It's in like you see what I mean about like it's hard locked in that time. Like I don't know if that like there's also you knew people whose identity was built around that movie. I don't know if you did, but like I realized in retrospect, like I knew people who this was their favorite thing in the world. There's just such a captured energy to it, and there's so much of it that is like the purpose of the movie is to see the action figures in high fidelity flip around and talk and fight.
And like to be fair, I can't put myself back in a time when all I knew was Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And then this came out because I very after playing the remake, that doesn't really matter to
It feels
me.
quaint.
It feels quaint, but I'm sure back in the day I would have been able to ignore a lot of it just for the fact of being able to see how good it was.
Yeah, everybody who was like a mark ignored how shitty the movie was when it came out.
They were just
'cause-
enraptured by how
Yeah.
it looked, even if some of the fights were not so good, especially towards the beginning. I was asking you when you called Josh. I was asking, like, did the fights become more legible, or did my mind adjust?
I think they did.
Because they were pretty rough at the beginning. The Tifa fight in the church was really rough at the beginning. There were a lot of weird cuts and a lot of, like, I don't know what's happening right
Yeah,
now.
there was.
But by the time,
Some bizarre stuff there.
with the Sephiroth fight, where, like you said, a lot of it was white noise, it's like I was still able to comprehend what was happening most of the time.
I think
of
there's
course,
a.
most of it was just slash.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a real trouble to, like, again, when the characters can, like, everybody can practically fly, like, it kind of reduces the importance of choreography. Like, when Reno and Rude were fighting those other dudes, like, there was actual, like, pretty decent fight scene choreography for some of that. Like, that looked okay, and it was very legible.
Hey, if we're talking about potential improvements for the movie, I have one that I feel like was a missed opportunity.
Okay.
They were each fighting the equivalent of themselves.
Uh-huh.
You know, fist, you know,
Tool. Let's just say tool.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I feel like there was a real missed opportunity, and it's like, we're both losing.
Let's switch.
We've sparred against each other. Let's switch.
Uh-huh.
And then immediately, you know, it's like they do better against the other person because they're more familiar.
Yeah, that could have been funny.
I feel like that was just a missed opportunity.
They switch because, and then it's like, how are you able to block all my moves? Says the twonk, and then Reno says something like, you know, me and Rude spar every week, or
exactly.
something like that. Who knows? Like that. Yeah, that could have been cute.
You know, you could have had quippy dialogue, you know, just like the Academy or whatever.
Yeah. And like, again, even though stuff like Vincent's gun is obviously not doing anything to Bahamut, like there is some like tangible presence to everybody, like doing everybody. It feels like everybody's doing something in that scene, other than maybe Red like trying to bite its head and did that do anything? Maybe he was going for the eyes. He was going for the eyes.
I think so, but yeah, no.
What was Kate doing there? Kate didn't help very much. Just like normal.
He's just being goofy.
Yeah.
He's just being a little guy. No, I feel like to improve that a little bit, I feel like everybody's hit should have been a little bit meatier, because even though they were doing stuff, it was doing the classic, you know, maybe I'm just gamer brained, but the noise it was making and the spark, it's like they're hitting the armored part, they're doing no damage.
Yeah.
They should have maybe had that at the beginning and then throughout it. I mean, he gets cracked eventually, but it's like it didn't feel like there was a sense of progression to that.
Let's just go linearly now, like with the fight scenes at like the back part of it, because it's also like you have the motorcycle chase at the beginning, and then the Tifa fight, and then there's the fight in the Forgotten City. The fight in the Forgotten City has like some decent choreography in it, like a couple of brief bits kind of look okay, but that's the one that really stands out in my mind when I think about like they leap through the air and then it seems like physics stop working. It feels like they're just standing there, like they're just like kind of flying, they're no clipping, and they're like, okay, so now I'm gonna adjust and think about what I'm gonna do next, and I'm gonna fiddle with my equipment for a second. Like it doesn't feel like they're careening through the air. It feels like they're no clipping. But like I think the stuff that's most interesting is when they suddenly get grounded physically, like when Cloud's sword like gets pinned in that tree. And he runs, instead of just like leaping to it, which he logically could from what he's done for the rest of the film, instead of just like flying over to it, he's like running through the branches and jumping and swinging, and he grabs it, and then the tree's falling over, and he's holding onto the sword to stay stabilized, which again, he shouldn't have to do because he can fly.
But it looks cool, so it doesn't matter.
But it's like that's my point. I guess like if you remove the flying, would the movie get more interesting? Because when he's holding onto that and like blocking one-handed with the other sword as the other guy's shooting at him, like that kind of looks cool and works. And one of the only like legible, like I guess that's not true. Legible is the Sephiroth fight is mostly legible, except that one part where they go inside of a building and the frame is like pitch black, and they're just jumping back and forth, and just so you can see the metal clash and it lights up the screen for a second. The only part of that where it feels like one of them is doing something, like one of them performs a move, is when Sephiroth like cuts the building in half and drops it on Cloud, and Cloud is like standing on his sword stabbed into the side of it, right?
Yeah.
And there's like a moment where he like physically like reaches down, like he kicks something on his sword and gets another sword to pop out, and he gets that and stabs that into the wall, and then like drops and grabs both of them and is hanging from them for a second, and then flips out, so now he has two swords. Like he couldn't do that easily hanging on the side of a building, so he had to do something like a little like kind of like physical and precise.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? Like there was a process. He did something. But then
that's the thing is in my brain, it's like the problem is when you have so much of the fight just being sword slashes. It's like for me, I'm thinking of the fight in like bracket points, and it's like the first encounter, and then there's just white noise slashing. And it's like that's one of the break points where it's like yada 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 yada. Okay, now he's
there was a distinct beat. Like Cloud took an action.
Yes. And there's like a little break from the combat for a second.
I was afraid you might have missed that moment of him getting the swords because you and I were laughing so hard, like trying not to be rude in the theater, with Sephiroth being like, "Oh,
what did he say?"
I don't remember what he said at that point because it's not that shall I give you despair or tell me what you cherish most, give me the pleasure of taking it away. It's something else there. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
God, I don't remember what he says right then.
It was so horny. It was so horny.
So the funny the memes around that one are shall I give you despair is shall I give you despair is changed to shall I give you despair, and he's got a pear in his hand. The other one that I saw years ago that's really funny is like a Foursquare comic of tell me what you cherish most, give me the pleasure of taking it away, and then Cloud says my virginity. And then Sephiroth's got like not like it was like pre Wojak faces, but like Sephiroth's got like an annoyed troll face, and Cloud's got like a cross-eyed like troll face.
Oh man. Stuff. Yeah, I don't remember that exact line. Anybody listening to this probably knows what we're talking about.
He said something there. I mean, it wasn't just the line itself. It was the escalation of all the stupid shit he's saying throughout that fight. It was like how funny the whole thing is that Sephiroth is here so at all. Is so funny. Joey went and checked afterward. The line in question that got to us was as Sephiroth has just he's jumped to the top of the Shinra building and he's swung his sword around a bunch and he's blatantly, obviously about to throw the building at Cloud. He declares, "On your knees. I want you to beg for forgiveness." I'm really not sure why it got me so bad, because in the moment, I didn't even process it on it's super horny level, like Joey just said. I think it was number one, the cumulative effect of just sitting in that theater for an hour and a half. But also like he's just saying nonsense. He's just saying words to say them. He's not having a conversation with Cloud. They're just flipping around and attacking each other with their giant swords. He can't get down on his knees and beg for forgiveness if you drop a building on his head, Sephiroth.
It's like I almost wonder why the movie wasn't just like a movie of the last little bit of the game.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, because he's not a sword. That was what we were talking about before we went in. Is that he's not a sword fighter at the ending.
But you can change stuff.
By the way, now I don't know if you caught this. Did you see this is where the visuals of the final boss of the remake came from? Because they're flying around the ruins of the Shinra building, fighting on floating concrete slabs. That was like they have been all of their like real-time action combat systems for the last 20 years have been them trying to put that movie into a game.
Well, at the very end when he does special new Omni Slash or whatever, I was like, they saw that and we're like, 15. We're gonna make that a class.
Yeah. That's why he has the fusion sword, so he can attack him with 13 different swords and the bip bop boop zip zop zoop all over the place.
Yeah. All that is cool. This is a very small nitpick. I feel like the swords were too far out. I feel like they should have been more contained, so it would have been faster.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not after a movie of like they need to stop making the movement look realistic. He needs to be doing zip zip zip. He needs to be crossing the screen and hitting Sephiroth in like 2 frames on each one.
Exactly.
It needs to be really fast.
They should have gone to the future and learned from fighting game supers.
Yeah.
I mean, they had fighting game supers back then, but you know what I mean. There's like you gotta fit a whole bunch into a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But whatever. Mm-hmm. A small complaint, doesn't really matter.
But yeah, and you have we were saying, there's suddenly there's kind of choreography when Reno and Rude are fighting those two guys. The fight with Bahamut mostly works. It's because it's at that point you're just that's the popcorn munching. Yes, everybody is here stuff. It's not really about you're at that point you're like, the movie isn't working anyway, so at that point you're happy to see an ATST. Yeah. But I didn't say anything going into it because I didn't want to color your impression of it. I think the final motorcycle chase is one of the only parts of the movie that works on exactly the level that the filmmakers intended it to.
Yeah.
I think it's basically doing exactly what it was supposed to do, except for, like you said, like the when they go into the tunnel, it gets a little tiny bit too busy.
Yes.
So originally, I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. I'm pretty sure that originally, Reno and Rude showed up in a helicopter. They might not have shown up in a helicopter at all. It might have gone straight into the tunnel. If they did, no, they did show up briefly. They showed up just for the machine gun part, and then they went into the tunnel and they lost track of them. All the stuff with the RPG and one of them like flying up there to get him was added, and then Elena dropping a rope and them going ahead. Originally, they just fired a couple of bullets and then they'd gone ahead to plant the bombs. I think that one bit is the best addition in Complete, because just embrace it. Just like shoot the rocket launcher, blow up the entire interstate, and then the dude ramps off of it and flies through the open cockpit and shoots the joystick. Like that's the movie.
It's crisp.
The whole thing should have been like that. And there's also something, like, obviously the motorcycles are not moving realistically, but there's something to the way that they move where they get, like, some of the problems of how everybody, like, all the actual characters move, where they're moving so realistically, and then they start flying, and it feels weird.
Yep.
But those bikes are still, they're not obeying any real world physics of bikes, but they do have to stay on the ground. Like, their main thing is that they can maintain forward momentum and they can reverse at the exact same speed that they can go forward, and that's nuts.
Yeah, I don't think you caught me laughing at this, but when, like, it's so small or so minor, but it's like every time I saw the motorcycles, I was like, what are those front barrels for? That's what. Why is there exhaust?
And then they finally shot.
And then they shoot out, and it's a gun, and I started laughing. I was like, I can't believe it.
I caught you laughing, but I didn't know that you had noticed them and were wondering what they were.
Well, it was just like in my brain, I was like, what is that?
It's an odd design,
yeah. The quote looks cool, so whatever.
But stuff like one of them going in reverse and like mounting up on the other bike to shoot at the motorcycle. I mean, to shoot at the helicopter. Like, that is exactly the type of stupid shit that works in the movie.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have that kind of weird feeling of like, okay, but the characters are flying around and I don't feel grounded in the scene at all. Because while it's insane, like, it feels like they were constrained by the fact that they were on motorcycles. So they were like, what cool things can motorcycles do?
Yes.
Like, the scene had rules. They weren't real world rules, but it had its own internal logic.
The Reno Rude fight like felt, so good, was because it's like, even though they are getting launched around, it's like them themselves are not flying around.
Yeah.
Most of the fight is.
He has that very silly moment where he like scrambles up the building, but that's a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, the whole movie. I mean, obviously, I know that they like. The people who made this movie think it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, they know that it's silly and over the top. But yeah, I think that I don't think the motorcycle sequence is necessarily like the best part of the movie or whatever. Because I don't know, honestly, probably is. Because it's like I said, I think it's the only part that's working like the whole time that it's working. Because even every good scene, like the phone syncing is ruined by the fact that we've already seen Aerith. Not ruined, but it's like it's not as strong as it could have been. What could have been a good scene with Tifa and Cloud is messed up by Dilly Dally Shilly Shally, but I guess in Japanese we don't have to worry about that. We should have gone to see it subbed, Joey.
What a shame.
I wonder
over dubs, man.
I said no. That's the thing, is that I guarantee you it would have been dub titles. The subtitles would have said that she said Dilly Dally Shilly Shally. It would not have been a better translation.
No, but at least in that, I can disconnect my brain and be like, I said something different in Japanese.
Oh boy.
The translators.
But yeah, it's a weird one, because like some of the actors I think are doing a decent job, and some of them it's like, okay, they just didn't have anything to work with here. Like, I mean, Steve Blum as Vincent is just doing a Steve Blum voice, and that's fine. And like I said, I really think that the guy doing Cloud is, like, considering what he's in, I think he's hitting the correct notes.
Yep.
And Tifa is, like, fine.
I don't know about that.
I think that there's like, I think she just doesn't have any good dialogue. I don't think the performance is necessarily terrible.
It's true. They kept giving her. She has so many lines where it is like she's having to do all these concessions for the lip sync.
I think I'm giving her actress a lot of credit, because she also voiced Tifa in Kingdom Hearts 2, and I think she does a pretty good job there. Like, I think she's totally fine in that movie.
Okay.
Whereas this is the same voice as voiced Aerith in Kingdom Hearts 2, and I really don't think that Aerith worked all that well in Kingdom Hearts 2.
I remember that.
The voice that they used makes more sense for she's a ghost. She's got that wispy, distant, I'm coming from beyond vibe.
But it sucks.
Yeah, because it's not Aerith. Because it has nothing to do with how Aerith would act or ever be. I guess we gotta wrap up this conversation. Joey, Advent Children complete.
Complete. Let's go. I can understand all the references that are gonna happen in Reunion and Revengeance or whatever they call the last one.
I'm sure I told you about the fact that the three ghosts you fight at the ending of Remake are them at the time, but that was 4 years ago.
I was like, what? I was like, what are these goobers from? I don't remember. I was thinking about that earlier today, not thinking it was going to be related to this movie. Mm-hmm. And then you hit it, like you told me that in the theater, and my brain expanded.
But it was 4 years ago, and you didn't remember, because why would you? Because those characters were just abstract concepts to you at the time.
They were just weirdos.
Anyway,
dust monsters.
So we'll see how much of that comes. I've seen a lot of people freaking out about they're putting this in theaters because they want you to watch it before Rebirth. They're expecting you to know everything, and I'm like, I really think they're putting it in theaters to promote a video game and make a little extra scratch, my guy.
I think so. It's a good time to do it.
I guess we'll see. We got a week before we find out.